People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, tonight we have a legend in magic. Legend is thrown around so much, but I worked a magic shop in 1995, 96, and this dude had VHS tapes and DVDs on the shelves. This guy, my whole entire magic career, he's one of the people I've looked up to. Prolific creator. I mean, you must have 50 different magic tricks on the market. Legendary host of Penguin Live lectures for numerous years, countless years, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. But everybody, I'm so excited. My buddy, Dan Harlan. What's up, bud? How are you?
Hey, hi, everybody. Good to see you again, Wes. It's been a little while, and real happy to be here. Let's talk. Let's talk about magic and have some fun.
Well, so I know you from your Rubber Band DVD, I think was the first thing, and then Pax Flat Play Big or Pax Small Play Big.
yeah. Pax right? Small plays big, because not everything was flat, but everything was small.
Everything was small, but and I had all those, man. So I mean, you were even before I told you before the podcast started, you were on my television in my house 3 hours a night. My wife.
Yep.
You watching Dan again? You're watching Dan again.
Yep.
So it's just, you've been there my whole magic career, dude. So thank you for all the influence and all the creative stuff that you've given me. I don't want to just blow smoke, buddy. I'm a fan.
Well, no, you're very welcome. That's really, I mean, that was my purpose. I knew when I started out, I knew that I could just, I could just stick to my own and make a living without ever associating with another magician, and do a great show and become, a worldwide sensation and all those kinds of things. I could do that, right? Or I could give back to the community that supported me when I was young, and also kind of emulate my idols, because at the time I had idols that were really great teachers that were doing wonderful things. Michael Amar and Paul Harris and Daryl and all these guys. I saw them coming to my town and sharing their magic with all of us. All the groups that I attended, and I loved that. And I was like, no matter what happens in my career, no matter how famous I get or how busy I get, I always want to be able to give back, to give to the community. And I don't want to hold back any of my secrets like they're great treasures. They're valuable. And for me, they're all usable and they're all solid. Everything I do is commercially viable. I don't sell a thing or talk about a thing or teach anything unless I firmly believe in it and have used it in my own act. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it should be so treasured by me and no other magician's allowed to use it. What I think is that if I share it and I share it properly, it makes all magic better. Because one of the things that we fight against is the perception of a magician. Audiences used to think of magicians as just the weird rabbit in the hat pulling guy in the tuxedo that does kids' birthday parties. Most of that has faded. Part of that I think I'm responsible for, and Paul Harris was responsible for, and some of the other people that had appeared on talk shows in the early days. But nowadays, with the advent of the internet and all of the other magic specials that are on TV, like Penn and Teller Fool Us and all of that kind of stuff, there's a better exposure to more varieties of magicians. So audiences around the world don't have that singular idea, that stereotypical idea of a magician. They now know that magicians come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and ages, and it's really great.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, you say that and it just made sense, I put you up there with Amar and Daryl as a creator. I mean, you've done it. I mean, how does that make you feel to be among that list of Paul Harris and?
Well, yeah, it makes me feel sorry for those guys because I'm so much better than they are.
all right. Well, let's go somewhere else.
love it.
I don't edit this thing, Dan.
Oh, yeah, cut that part. No, cut that. Is this going out live? What's happening here? No, of course I'm kidding, right? I want everybody to know that I'm kidding. It's so difficult to joke around about things in this day and age because people take things seriously, and even if they don't take things seriously, they like to stir the pot, So no, I have the utmost respect for them, of course, and it was always my intention to live up to the level that they set. And hopefully I have. Now, I will tell you, okay, that, in all fairness, I just haven't stopped. So once I started releasing my ideas and my creations and coming up with things and working it all out, I kept at it constantly and kept transforming, and kept doing new material. So I hold a lot of records that the other creators and teachers don't have, one of which I've released more magic on DVD than any other magician. And the other one is I've released more magic on video of any format than any other magician. I have performed and taught more magic than any other magician. So yeah, I think I've done a pretty good job honoring those that have come before me, but I also have set a new bar and a new level that hopefully will be a legacy for me, because I think, that's the other important thing, is that it's all good quality. And if anybody else wants to attempt it, I can tell them it's going to be really difficult. It's a hard road unless you absolutely love what you're doing. You absolutely have to love magic 24/7. Otherwise, you'll burn out trying to do all the stuff that I've done.
Well, just the tarbell, tackling that alone. Yeah. How many years did that take?
5. Took 5 years. Yeah, and it was in the planning stages for 15 years before that, because it wasn't practical. There was no real way to do it before the digital format became common. Because we used to record on magnetic tape in the old days. And before that, photographic things. But let's not even talk about that. But magnetic tape. So the physical format, there would have been way too many pounds of format. And then editing in those days was also a real challenge, because most of it was done physically. They were just transforming into digital. And that when I first proposed it, I was doing VHS with L&L Publishing. So that's the format and then it would have to be released in that format. So that was also a problem. But they liked the concept of it. It wasn't possible at all. So I shelved it. I put it aside. And then, 15 years after I first proposed it, I happened to be working with Penguin Magic, and everything had gone to digital downloads, and everything was, done, edited digitally. I myself, was getting conversant with editing. So I knew that it was practical, because there wasn't going to be as much expense on the front end to be able to do it, and the turnaround could be quicker. So we would be able to do it on that weekly subscription basis. Penguin they loved the idea, and when they said yes, I had to scramble and get all my notes together and then start doing it. And it turned out really good. It was more ambitious even than I thought, because I started out wanting to release them every week, and it very quickly became evident that was not going to be possible. That I had to perform every week, but because of the way the material had to be put together, there was no way that I could perform enough in a week to be released in a week. So we sent it. We then reset the schedule to a bi-weekly release, and I still performed on average 6 new items every week. So I wrote and designed and built and scripted and performed and costumed and did music and everything for 6 new items a week. So we were in production, constantly. I had very, very little time off. There were 3 times that I had to take a break because of exhaustion. I just worked myself too hard. But I was thrilled to do it.
I was a subscriber, man. I have every single issue, and you costumed, but building these illusions. You're on your hands and knees, and sometimes he would show how the trick was done, and he's on his hands and knees in his office showing, well, the flap is going to be here, but it starts with this, and you sand this, and you do this.
Mhm.
Then he's going and performing it in Penguin that week, like fresh.
Yep.
And I'm like, did you really perform everything there? Or did you tell them, hey, look, this is my first time ever doing this? He's like, no, that's how I would do it. And that's how I did it. And
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So no, and it was and that's the thing. I didn't like hire a staff. I didn't hire a carpenter. I didn't hire a costumer. And I didn't rent a warehouse space to set up a shop because I wanted this. Like I want everything that I teach. I wanted it to be from a practical perspective. I wanted to show that any magician that is interested in doing any kind of magic can use whatever resources they have to the greatest capacity of their capabilities. And so I built everything in my tiny little basement, and some of the things in my little living room, and everything could be broken down to fit inside of a car to be taken to the show and then set up there. So it was a practical illustration of what's possible to do as a standalone performer, as somebody who really is dedicated to the art. Now, when I got into some really big things, I did have some help with building from Nicholas Lawrence, because Nicholas Lawrence was working with Penguin at the time, and we became good friends, and he was very excited by the project. And I was like, well, if you're going to volunteer, of course I'm going to have you help me. You're a smart guy and you know what you're doing. So he helped out quite a bit. And I do have to give, a shout out to the entire staff at Penguin Magic, because without them, they were very professional. Again, I came up with all this stuff and put it all together, but they still had to light it, stage it, make it happen. They had to believe in me. They had to film it. I didn't have to tell them, any of that kind of stuff. They did all the editing for it. So I did all the front end production. My responsibility was to put on a good show. That's what I did. And so every week, and like you said, I didn't tell the audience, this is new stuff and I've never done it before. No, I just did a show and that's it. So they saw new stuff, but they didn't know the purpose of why they were seeing a new show every week. Now you got to think about this too, because this, people who subscribed may not realize that at that time, Columbus, Ohio was like the hotbed of live magic performance. Every week, an audience gathered around, lined up, sometimes around the block, to come in and see the show. It was talked about, throughout the city, and it was hard to get a seat. And we had to start expanding the audience out as much as possible. Eventually, it got to the point where we were turning so many people away that we had to charge. We didn't want to charge. We always wanted to let people come in, but we had to charge. So we charged $5 per person, hardly anything, just so that we would get people that would commit to it, that would reserve in advance. So we kind of knew how many people would be there, and we could control the ticketing that way. But yeah, we had, it was a little over, the actual shows were over 6 years, about 6 years. So the project itself was like a 5-year project, but then the shows continued even after that. And man, it was one of the best venues ever.
You could do a whole hour-long podcast or a DVD just talking behind the scenes about that. Because I mean,
Oh, yeah.
You were in the coin section of the book, but you would be in different outfits because you filmed this coin trick 3 weeks later and this coin trick here because you didn't want to do a whole coin set, and
Yeah.
illusion after illusion after illusion. But these illusions were so similar, he didn't want to do them on the same night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Figuring all that out, dude, just hurts my head.
Yeah, and that was what, like I said, it was impossible to release weekly for that reason. Let's say you've got the coin section. If I don't get all of the coin tricks done in that lesson, I can't release that lesson. And there's so many of them that I can't do, a dozen coin tricks in one show. And there's lots of variations of the same idea. So I would have to piece it out. I'd have to play. There was a whole spreadsheet on how everything was going to go. And so, a coin lesson might be done in 4 performances. And so it has to happen over 4 performances, and then there needs the editing time for it to be released. So you need to have that lead time of about, a month and a half to 2 months before it gets released for all of that stuff to happen. And that's every lesson. Not every lesson had the same, issues with it. And then they had to work together. You know, I had to find a way to write a show where I could do the material that was coming up in the time that it needed to be done so that they could then turn it around and turn it into a lesson. Yeah.
Dude, I watched every single episode, and I remember at one point you were hinting about doing like an anime project. Am I right about that?
Yes. Okay. So, you know, I'm sure you've heard this from so many people that, before the pandemic. So yes. So there were a lot of projects that were being tossed around inside Penguin, and I loved all of them. And one of them that kind of appealed to me was to do something about anime. Now that project may still happen, but I am no longer completely connected with Penguin. I still do independent stuff with them. I still go up there every once in a while, because what happened was when the world shut down, we just didn't have as many people coming into the studio. So it didn't make as much sense for me to just wait around and not do very much work. And it didn't make sense for them either. So I decided I was going to go independent. And then I met my current life accomplice, and I decided, I'm going to move to North Carolina. So I'm in North Carolina now, and no longer like directly connected with Penguin. So any of the projects that we were doing that we discussed may or may not happen. That's one that I might do on my own, but I have such so much work that I'm trying to get done right now. I am writing my masterworks. I'm writing 3 large volumes of my life works right now. I'm doing a new lecture that I'm debuting in 2 days from this recording. And I have a big convention coming up that we started last year. So the anime project is a possibility, but things are going to have to cool down a little bit to give me some breathing room to be able to do it.
So now that you've become proficient editing, you would do that all yourself, or would you have Sarah help and other people, or do you think you can handle it all yourself?
Well, I do. I am so hands-on and always have been. And so I do the bulk of the work myself, but I don't refuse help from people who are capable. So, as it stands right now, the book project, I'm pretty much 100% doing that all myself. It's just because it's all about me. It's autobiographical. It's going to have my voice within the writing, and there's so much material that other people wouldn't even understand that I would take longer to try to explain it to somebody than me just doing it myself. So generally speaking, I do all the work myself. I really do like all the video editing too, just because I love it. So that's something. What I do, I have, Sarah Ella helps me out with anytime that I need research done, any kind of research. She's absolutely amazing at that. Of course, we build on each other's ideas. So if I have an idea for something, I'll bounce it off of her. If she has an idea for something, she bounces it off of me, and we create something together. So a lot of the newest work that we're doing is combining the stuff that she's done and her talents, and some of these ideas that I have had just dormant that never had a place for them to be. If we're gonna do a little bonus thing, just here, this is a teaser for people that want to come and see the bonus thing, because you had talked about that. I will do a visual bonus thing that is a combination of memory and magic together, that's never been seen before. So if you want to come to the actual video part of this, come and see that. All
right, that's on the Patreon only, guys. Sign up for Patreon. Yeah. So Dan, we're 20 minutes into this thing already, man. I only go for an hour because this thing's gonna cut off on me on an hour.
Okay.
I could go all night. I mean, we've only scratched the surface. My favorite trick, I have to tell you, my favorite trick of all of Tarbell, and you had a ton of them. I'm a fan, I'm telling you. But grapes to raisins. That is my favorite. And I can't do it. I'm a family entertainer. I'm just afraid somebody's going to take it the wrong way, and but I love it. I love the humor. I love everything about it, but somebody is going to take it the wrong way. Somebody's going to.
Yeah. I think you're best to err on the side of caution. So you could do it.
I love it. I love it.
You could do it, but you would have to be very, very careful who you choose, and I wouldn't necessarily make them eat the raisins, that kind of thing. Even though that is the funniest part, that's what makes it super funny. But yeah, I personally look. There's nothing offensive at all in that routine. Nothing offensive whatsoever. Okay. All right. And here's the thing. Here's how you could get away with it, because
all right, set it up. Let all the listeners know what it is first.
Oh yes, okay. So for those of you who haven't seen it, so you have a box, and it is a raisin making machine. So you show this box, and then you build it. You have somebody come up from the audience, and you say, look, it comes as a kit. You build it in your own home. It's very simple, and so it's just like 6 pieces of wood that go together. So there's a bottom, and they put the bottom on the thing, and it screws into a little stand, and then they slip the sides in, and you show the top, and you put the top on it. So you got a box, right? There's no mechanical things inside it or anything like that. And then you connect a tube to one end and a tube to the other end, and then you say, this box is for making raisins. If you're at home and you want to make your own raisins, this is the way to do it. And then you take some grapes, and you have the person feed some grapes into the tube, and then you wait a moment, you go over to the other tube, and you open it up, and out come raisins. And then you have them taste the raisins to make sure that they're really good and they enjoy them and that kind of stuff. And then you say, and you may be wondering how this amazing thing happens. And you open up the box, and inside the box is a guinea pig. And you say, it's because, whatever you name it, my guinea pig was named Ginger. You say it's because Ginger loves to eat grapes and make raisins. And that's it, okay? Now, here's why it's not offensive. It's hilarious, first of all. That's one of the reasons why it's not offensive. But the second reason it's not offensive is because if anybody gets offended by that, you can tell them Ginger is magical. The way she makes raisins is through magic. What were you thinking? And then they have to explain to you what they were thinking. And when they tell you what they were thinking, you say, well, that's disgusting. Why would you think that? You have a problem. You're the one that's wrong. And you can do that with a lot of humor, because that's the thing. The reason humor is funny is because it twists your perceptions. So yes, you're going to perceive that the animal is making raisin pellets in the way that a guinea pig or a rabbit, you can use a guinea pig or a rabbit, would make little pellets. But those little pellets, they don't look like raisins. They don't taste like raisins. They're not raisins. The whole thing is just a fiction that's hilarious, because your imagination says, oh, that's what's supposed to be happening, but it's not really happening. So any sensible person laughs at it. If they're offended by it, they are a disgusting, filthy-minded person. That's the problem. The problem isn't with you. The problem is with them.
It might be going to my show next year. Dude,
there you go. All right.
400 shows a year. I'm in an RV, pulling my family. We have identical twins. We have a little girl. We have a babysitter, wife, myself, and animals in the car. I'm driving this caravan around, and that thing has went through my head so many times trying to get around how I can put that in my show. I love it so much.
Yeah. But okay, this is the thing. Honestly, I think you probably won't get any pushback at all. You probably won't. But if you get pushback, you've already thought about it, but think more about it. Think, like what I said, just think, what if somebody says something? What are they actually thinking is wrong with this thing? And what is wrong with it? And you can say to them, like, how could you even believe that insinuation that is frivolous? It's a frivolous insinuation. It's a joke. That's what a joke is. It's meant to make your mind go, oh, I get it. That's hilarious. If you don't think that's funny, you don't have a sense of humor. You just don't. if you're taking any of that stuff literally, then why aren't you concerned about where the guinea pig came from? You know, do you think I had the guinea pig stuffed into that little tube in the stand? Was she flattened between two of the boards? Did I, what, you know, think about what the trick is. It's already fantastical. So your solution is mundane. If you think that she's quickly eating raisins and then transforming them in a natural scatological way.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's my favorite trick. It's my favorite trick.
Yeah, good. All right.
I have to ask you this, and you can feel free to shoot me down if you're not allowed to answer. Did you have anything to do with Weenie or Mad Joke?
I had nothing to do with Weenie because I was a mere child, I think.
Okay, I don't have that one, so I don't know when it came. I thought it was about the same
Weenie.
time.
I think. Well, I wasn't that young, but I was, you know, in my teens or something like that. I think when Weenie came out, and that was pretty funny for the day and age. Now, as far as Mad Joke goes, yeah, I was.
I was the Mad Joke here on the show.
Yeah, I was what you would call the mastermind behind Mad Joke. And it was really, and you know, and it's somewhat bittersweet to bring this up now because you wouldn't know this, but I'm allowed to talk about it. I've talked to everybody involved. The other major component of it was Scott Alexander, and Scott, of course, recently, just a few months ago, passed away unexpectedly, and he was one of my best friends. We had a great time together every time that we ever performed together. He was a kindred spirit, you know, just a wonderful guy. So I was living in Las Vegas at the time, and met him. He and you know, his soon-to-be wife Jenny at the time, and I met them. And Scott was already doing like some silly parodies of stuff. You know, he had like, you know, 4 or 5 of them, and one of them was the parody of cartoon known as Fart Tune. Fart Tune was his idea, right? I had already thought about doing the whole, you know, Mad Joke thing, doing a magazine like Weenie, but doing it a modern version. So as soon as we got together, we hit it off, and that's how the whole thing happened. It was just us having a really good time, and then we pulled in a couple other friends that were Vegas performers, and just started writing. And we got together, you know, just about every night over the course of a couple of months, and just laughed, you know, hilariously. And if you think the stuff that ended up in the magazine was funny and weird and sometimes disgusting and sexist and racist and, you know, whatever, you know, every joke that's in there, we had so much more material that was even worse. You know, we really did edit and censor ourselves and only publish the absolute best stuff that we could come up with. It was never our intention to insult or offend anyone, but, you know, humor is something that it changes over time. I personally stand by everything that's in there. I still think everything is funny, even though some of the stuff is dated. If you go back and read the original Weenie, you don't get many belly laughs out of it. But if you go through Mad Joke, there is a wealth of hilarious stuff in there, and a lot of it comes from also the graphic design. I will, you know, again, I'm kind of, you know, I probably shouldn't do it, but I'm a little bit bragging because I did all of the layout and graphic design. I came from a background as a graphic designer, so it just made sense. So any idea that they came up with, I figured out how to do it, how to make it into the magazine, how to do it visually, how to do the layout so that it looked exactly like the magazine, you know, like magic. Yeah, it was super fun. So yeah, I did come up with it, but you also have to blame Scott Alexander, and you'll never be able to track him down.
Well, my favorite, and Scott became a friend over the years, but my favorite episodes ever were the Christmas episodes.
Yeah. Oh,
and you guys had the best relationship, but you were an awesome host at Penguin, and you made everybody seem like your friend. But Scott, and especially Simon Lovell, it was just a whole nother layer of just camaraderie, and that was your real friend, you could tell.
Oh yeah,
And you,
well, Scott and I went, like I said, we went way back to the Vegas days, and we did spend a ton of time together and do a ton of projects together. So Magic is the one that magicians know about, but Scott and I also designed and built haunted houses together. And that's something that people don't even know. I mean, we did that. We were interested in a lot of the same kinds of things in musical theater and in the same kinds of movies and all that stuff. So we really spent a lot of time. We were very, very good friends. And like I said, kindred spirits. We got along famously. So yeah, so whenever he would turn up, whenever we would happen to work a show together, it was like, to me, it always felt like those classic buddy picture kinds of things, like the Bob Hope and Bing Crosby kind of stuff, or Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. It's that kind of a duo where we just really work so well together. We bounce things off of one another, and and one of the things that I learned early on from watching some of that classic stuff was that if you are a host of something, you gotta take into the passenger seat, if not the back seat. Let the talent drive the vehicle. And my favorite host of all time was Johnny Carson. So I just loved the way that he would interact. Everybody was his friend. He knew everybody. He would interact with all of the people that came on, and he would just let them shine. That was the thing, So it's the same thing. Whenever Scott would show up and we would do the Christmas things, Scott's the star. It's his show. I'm just there to support. I'm part of the supporting cast. And I approached the Penguin Live hosting the same way. Yes, I would chime in with facts or questions, anything like that, but I was always there to help whoever was the star to do the best job they could do.
well, we've had Eric Tate on the podcast. I love Eric, but it's not Dan Harlan. I told him that I miss Dan, dude. I love you, but I miss Dan. And your interview.
I mean, and this is the thing. Look, Eric's a great guy, but he knew, it's tough shoes to fill,
Yeah.
and especially during that time, I wouldn't, I would not want to be the person that is trying to reinvigorate, something that had collapsed during a pandemic, and now you're like the new guy on the scene, and everybody's familiar with me. They've known me for years. They've enjoyed it for years. Then it all goes away, and when it comes back, it's somebody else. It's a hard job to do. And
it got reinvented because they didn't do the interview portion at the end, and that was some of my favorite. I mean, sometimes the lecturers, and I'm talking, I subscribed from day one. Sometimes the lecturers, as a full-time magician, I didn't learn anything, but I loved the road stories, and I loved your interview process at the end, and I got more out of that than I did the entire lecture.
Yeah, and that's something that I brought to the table right away. I always loved that more than just learning a lot of tricks. We know we're going to do that. If somebody's going to lecture, we're going to learn a lot of tricks. But I want to know more about the person, and I particularly find road stories fascinating. Stories of problems that they've encountered and fixed, or whatever, or just anything like that. So I will tell you the secret, and it's the secret that I learned early on, and that is that there's a pre-interview questionnaire that I sent to everybody. So it had a list of questions, not too many. You don't want to overwhelm somebody, and you don't ask them for responses. You say you can fill something in if you want to, 2 or 3 words, just to kind of cue me as to what I should bring up, or you can just say, let's talk about this, that kind of thing. So you have a place to start with them, because not everybody is as comfortable being interviewed as, say, I am. If you're going to interview somebody that's comfortable with being interviewed, you don't need any preparation at all. You can ask them anything. That's just the way it is. But a lot of the people that would perform there, they were used to lecturing, they were used to performing, but they weren't used to talking about themselves or things that had happened to them, and so they just needed that basis. And then when somebody would show up for the lecture, I would just quickly go over that questionnaire and go, yeah, just tell me, just here. And I have a pen with me. I just go, tell me a little bit about this, so I can bring up a keyword and a keyword and a keyword. I'd take maybe at the most 5 minutes with them. And now we're set. Because honestly, if somebody if somebody says to me, 3 words about a question, I know I've got 10 minutes from that, just talking to them. And that was part of the secret, was that it was just, it was just because, and that's why I looked like everybody's friend, because it looked like I knew something already.
Right.
And that's something that I had learned about, Johnny Carson and other really great interviewers. They're not going into it cold. Johnny knows to ask about certain things. He knows to bring up, I had heard that you were at this party and did this thing, and tell us what happened there. So it sounds like he's got his ear, in everything that's going on in Hollywood. So it was the same thing for me. It sounded like I knew everything that was going on in magic.
Okay.
And
dude, it was awesome. It was great. And that's something, we're trying to do here at the podcast. Sometimes people are just tight, though.
Yep.
They give you one word answers, and it's just, you can do all the great interview you want. I took no notes for you. This is stuff I knew about you that I'm asking because I know you.
Yeah, but before we started this, you did the same thing. You asked me if there was anything specific I wanted to talk about, anything that should be brought up, all this kind of stuff. So we have the most vague outline, but that's all we need. Because I will, like I said, I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything. But I will tell you that there were a couple of Penguin live lectures and interviews that were like that were a bit of a struggle. And hopefully they didn't seem that way, but they were. Of course, those people will never be named, but and that's the thing. They just were uncomfortable for whatever reason. Who knows?
Yeah. It could be a million different things, or it could be. Dude, you have performed all over the world. I know with your lectures, but can you tell me about some things that you performed? What are some of the stories that you have from out of the USA? Anything cool that you want to tell us about? Or just start looking at places you performed?
Well, are you thinking like cool places or people that I've performed for, that kind of stuff? Because honestly, every place that I go, I have a good time. But
you left Penguin and went on one hell of a tour.
What was that?
You left Penguin at one point during Penguin while you were doing it. Other people took over for you, and you did a hell of a tour with all your lectures. I mean, it was worldwide.
Yeah. I did like 2 major tours while I was there, almost kind of back to back, and one of them was really early on after I joined them. And I'm getting ready to do that this next summer. So a year from now, I'm doing that same tour. That tour is arranged by a guy in France, and you tour France, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and some other surrounding things, depending on how far you can attend it. And that's a bit of a whirlwind thing. It happens pretty quickly. It's usually over the course of a month. And I remember that the one that I did when I had joined Penguin was 22 appearances in 30 days. So there's only 8 days off in that whole time. Yeah, so it was a lot. It was packed, but I love that. I absolutely love that. And I had done that tour. This when I go back next summer, it'll be the 3rd time. So I had done that tour before the advent. Really, the major advent of the internet the way that we know it, and GPS the way we know it. So it was early on when that technology hadn't become commonplace, and I did that tour. That was tough. That was really, really tough. Like I had a book of papers of who to contact. I had to call everybody, and that was hard because they didn't have it worked out where you could use a phone, like internationally. At that point, there were cell phones early on, but they didn't have international service. So I would have to find a phone, a pay phone, and call. It was tough. It was really, really tough. Then the second time back, which was just when I joined Penguin, it was super easy. The car that I had, had GPS in it. Everything was planned out perfectly. I had one piece of paper with all the contacts and the addresses on it. And I didn't have to worry about anything. There was one situation, and I'll tell you about it. And this could happen to anybody. So I showed up for one of the lectures on the address that was given, and I go into the parking lot for this location, Address is right, building's right, location's right, all that kind of stuff. But it's locked. The building's locked, and there's no signage or anything. No place to know where to go or whatever. And so I had a cell phone, of course, because it was working during this lecture. And so I call up the person for the night to try to figure out what's going on, and they say, "Well, we're already at the venue." And I said, "Well, where's the venue?" It had been moved, but the information never got updated onto what I had. So it was no longer at this building that I was at. Now, that's bad enough. They had moved it, and I was, say maybe 20 minutes away, so I wouldn't be too late. I'd be pressed for time, right? So I get back into the car, and I go out of the parking lot, and there's a gate there, and the gate doesn't go up. And I move the car here, and I move the car there, I move the car everywhere. Are there sensors? What do? I go out to the gate, and I'm like, it doesn't go up. The parking lot is closed from the inside. There is no way. There's only one way in and out, and that's that gate. Now, the gate was a metal structure, and there was no way of getting through it. Big, heavy duty, right? And so you got the mechanical part of it here. And then just about a car's width is a tree. There's a curb and a tree and another curb, and it's just about the width of the car that I have. Yeah, you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
What choice do I have? There was no other way of getting out. So I take this rental car and I go up on the curb. And the person traveling with me, I had her get out of the car and stand next to the tree, and actually she was stand on the other side next to the thing because I could watch the tree, and I got like half an inch away from the tree, and I'm inching through the thing, and it was right next to the metal part of the gate, and so she pushes in the door, and I floor it past it, and we had like a scratch about 6 inches long, one scratch on the door, 6 inches long, getting out of that parking lot. And then we go on with the rest of the tour. So anyway, things can happen. They aren't awful. There is usually a way out. Had I not been able to do that, or had I not even tried to do that, we would have canceled the lecture, but I don't like to cancel anything, So all I had to do afterwards, of course, was pretty easy. I just had to rub out that scratch. I returned the car. I never got charged for it by the rental company, so that's the story. So if there's a rental company out there in France that's like, well, I wonder who scratched this door. It was me. I did.
Now they know. I have listeners to 52.
Just very briefly, most of my road stories are about difficulty driving in foreign countries. And I took a wrong turn in Amsterdam in this same car during this same tour. I took a wrong turn in Amsterdam, going the wrong way down a one-way street, which normally isn't so bad if you can correct it. But the way that those streets are built, they're brick, and they had curbs on both sides, and it was only one lane. There was no way to like turn out of going down this thing, but there was a correct lane over the middle curb, and so I turned over it and scraped the entire undercarriage of the same rental car. So that car put up with a lot from me.
It's a rental. It's a
rental. That's what I thought too. I was like, it's a rental. Either this is going to work and I'll still be able to drive it, or it's just going to go horribly wrong. But the thing was, I fortunately I didn't get any fines or any of that kind of stuff, because you never know. I mean, you do the best you can under those circumstances, but sometimes you have to do things that are somewhat scary and dangerous and new, and they're not always the things that you anticipate. Surprises come up,
So we have a lot of magic we sell back of the room. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to negotiate a tour that big and have all your merchandise there? Is that a logistical nightmare, or is it because of the established route?
Yeah, it is. It's become easier for me and for most performers. I used to have to lug around VHS tapes That was the hardest part. There was one tour that I did in England where I sent over, a large box. It was probably about a half a gross, so 72 VHS tapes, and they never arrived.
Oh,
So that was a problem, and they were lost, right? So, and all the money that you could have made on those was gone, and they never turned up. Now that tour that I did do, that recent one, which I say recent, but that was that was probably 15 years ago, that one that we've just talked about where the car had problems. There were some things that I sent over in a box. It was a pretty small box. And that stuff did arrive in France, but it was held by customs. And it was held by customs for the entire tour. So there was nothing I could do about getting those things out, to sell those things, because I was going back and forth with customs. And I will tell you, here's a hilarious thing. I thought that I was talking to a person named Dwayne. I thought I was, we were emailing back and forth, and I thought that the guy's name was Dwayne. No, that's just the name of French customs. Douane is French name for French customs. So eventually I figured that out. I was like, oh, I've been calling you Dwayne this whole time. And so it's your name. Anyway, they didn't have a sense of humor. They didn't release my stuff. It just got sent back. So I lost all the money on shipping and lost all the money on sales. So the challenge is, and I will say this, and I hope that no customs agents are listening, the challenge is to find products that you can bring with you that don't look like products, and then do the final packaging at your final destination. But don't overdo that, because if your stuff is looked at and they see that you are trying to come in and sell things and not claim them, you could be turned back, and you could lose, you could lose your ability to travel at least to that country. It's possible. It's happened to people that I know. It hasn't happened to me, fortunately, because generally speaking, what I do in those circumstances, again, this is something. Let's say I sell a trick that uses a Sharpie marker. So here at home, I gimmick up the Sharpie marker, all of them, and then I'll take 24 Sharpie markers and put them into the original boxes and seal them with tape, and they look like I've just got 24 Sharpie markers. That's it. It doesn't look like anything else. There's no packaging. There's no nothing, anything like that. And then I'll bring with me some sandwich bags, and then the original, like the instructions and stuff like that, will all be digital, so that when I get over to the country, the first thing I have to do is to print out and copy, or print multiple, versions of those, and then package everything. So that takes a little bit of time too. It's always nice to have a little, like a day off once you arrive, to be able to do that. But that, that way, customs agents looking at that, you've got 24 Sharpie markers, nothing to see,
What about somebody at the first, you have friends all over the world, man.
Yeah.
I know you. What about just sending it to a friend over there and just picking it up?
Yes, and you can, and that's what happened with those 2 shipments. But in general, if you send shipments far enough in advance and they're not too big, they get through. The problem is those big shipments are issues. And it shouldn't have been an issue. It shouldn't have been held up in customs. It was just held up because, and everything, all the paperwork was right. But if they just, for whatever reason, they want to inspect it, or they want to deny that it's this stuff, or that it's that price, or whatever it is, they can just hold on to it. And there's nothing you can do. You have to provide all kinds of paperwork that you don't have, because it's all at home and you've already provided the proper paperwork anyway. So those are kinds of situations. So yeah, if you are able to plan far enough in advance and send most of your stuff over in smaller shipments, then you'll be fine. But yeah, it's tough, especially if you're going over for a month. Man, a month, it's hard to plan for. So most of the stuff that I had, I sent some things over. I sent one large box over that never made it, and I brought in a few other things. So that's that took care of the month for me. So it wasn't a complete waste.
Dude, we've almost done an hour already, and this is crazy. This is crazy. I have so much to ask you.
But you ask me, I can talk at length about anything. You should have known that this was going to happen.
So I wanted to talk about your music. Are you still doing your band stuff?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance I think about the last year, I haven't really had a chance to do much musically. I've just been busier with other things. But I do plan to get back into doing that. I've recently built a stage in my garage, both for magic and for music. It's not finished. I just built it, and eventually I'll finish it, and I'll put most of my music stuff out there so I can start doing that. But I've been really excited about the advancements in voice activated and AI music. It's going to allow me to create a lot of stuff just on my own. So I don't have to invest in a lot of instruments. I don't know if you know much about the advancements that have been made, but you can now do MIDI control on just about any instrument just by vocalizing it. So you can go bop bop dee da beep bop doo, and then tell it to make that into a saxophone, and it will.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
what it.
That's amazing.
There's some pretty cool stuff out there. So it'll be fun to play around with that. You know, I've still been keeping up with just singing in general, just keep my voice pretty active. But you know, nothing out professional, no gigging, because the guys that I was in a band with, they're back in Columbus, and you know, I haven't been up there in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had this new book on pre-sale. Is there any excerpts from Maggio that got edited out going to be in that new book? I want to see the stuff that you guys cut.
Well, okay, there won't be. I will tell you that. So I
Okay,
don't want you to get too excited, because there won't be. Because the stuff that got cut never got written down or recorded in any way. It was all because we would sit around and pitch ideas to one another and just laugh hysterically at how, you know, we can't do that. You know, there's no way we can do that. But what can we do? What part of that can we do? And then we would hone it into something, and then that would be written down. So in the you know, in the brainstorming sessions, in the creative writing sessions, that's where all of that stuff was. We had no, you know, and I made it clear to everybody. I was like, look, as far as ideas go, nothing's off limits. So tell me what you think is funny. Let's all laugh about it. We may not be able to publish it. And so there was a lot of that. That happened all the time. And again, I can't divulge all of that stuff, but it was mostly very, very offensive to a particular religion. and it came from somebody of that religion. So that particular person could make fun of that religion, and it was hilarious, but there is no way that we would have been able to print any of it. So, and then there was a lot of stuff that was just like, you know, sexually deviant humor. We didn't put a lot of that stuff in. There were innuendo. We put in some innuendo here and there, but most of the deviant stuff we didn't.
All right, so we have like 7 minutes. I want to talk about your new book. Where can we get your new book?
Yes. Okay. So it's not just one book. It's 3 books. So you want to go to themystictower.com. So it starts out with themystictower.com, themystictower.com. And you want to look for my masterworks. So Harlan's masterworks. So what I'm doing is I am publishing my life's work, everything that I think has made an impact that I've personally contributed. So all of the things that I've come up with that I think, you know, really make a difference. And then I'm adding in stories, and I'm adding in, you know, essays and stuff like that, and tons of photographs and lots of different charts and interesting layout. And it's going to be, you know, very cool. And it's going to be 3 books. So the first one will be like the early years of mine. 18 years will be covered in the first book, and then 18 years in the middle, and then 18 years for the last book. So quite a span of 54 years. They'll be published over 2-year increments. The first one will come out at the end of next year, at the end of 2024. So that one's in the works already. But if you go on to themystictower.com and look up Masterworks, you can subscribe to the project. Now, what that entitles you to receive is all 3 finished books, but you also get some incremental updates, like PDFs that I'm sending out that will show you how the book project is progressing. And they may come from the last book and the middle book and the first book, and they don't come out in the same order. It's whatever I happen to be working on at that time. And you want to subscribe real quick, because those increments are going to start coming out July 1st. So I announced this project in January, and then I've given myself a buffer, and then I'm going to start putting out the increments. I've already done a whole bunch of work and planning and design and pictures and layout and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to start sending out those incremental things over the course of a full year, from July 1st to next summer, and then approach a publisher with the finished thing and get that published by the end of next year. So that's book number 1. And then book number 2 will have a very similar kind of a schedule. There'll be a little bit of rest period, and then it'll develop again. So that is what I'm offering. It's a way of people committing to the project, but not having to wait completely. So it's like a pre-order, but it's a pre-order with a special gift attached to it. That's the way I like to think of it.
Awesome. I'm all for it. How much is it?
Yeah, so a subscription to all 3 is going to cost you, I believe, just $200. It might be $250. Yeah, each of the books at retail will be $100 each at retail, and so your subscription is $250, and then shipping will be added when they get published. So that's the way it is right now.
I love it. We'll talk. We'll sign me up.
Okay.
So danharlanmagic.com and themystictower.com.
Yep.
You have information for your Magic Con. You did your
yeah. So as far as the danharlanmagic.com, that is going to be it's going to be turned into a promotional only site. It'll redirect to the Mystic Tower. The Mystic Tower is where all my sales will go from now on. And Dan Harlan Magic will just be promotional for people who want to book me for shows and all that kind of stuff. So if you go to themystictower.com, you can also get that information on MagicCon. That's my magic convention that actually Sarah Elephant and I have put together. We did it last year. It's called MagicCon, kind of like Comic-Con, but for magicians. We're doing it again this year. This year will be slightly smaller, not because we had any problems last year. In fact, we had a great attendance, and it was a fantastic convention and ran beautifully and smoothly. The problem we had was that the venue where we had it has become very popular. We were one of the reasons for that. We did such a great job, hosting something in the venue, that a lot of people took notice, and people started to book more things into that venue, and they've been very active. Now, they're really great people, so we're working with them again this year. But we were only able to get 1 day instead of our 2-day festival. So it'll be 1 day, and so we're just doing a little bit smaller version of it. It'll be a little less expensive. It's too early to announce all of the acts and talents and all that kind of stuff. But I'm feeling it's going to be more close-up oriented, even though we will still have a big stage show. The big stage show, I have already lined up what's going to happen there, so that's all set. That'll be September 9th of this year, so it is coming up in 3 months, basically. So let's see, June, July, August, September, yes. So 3 months from now, and we'll be making more definite announcements when I get done with this leg of the tour that I'm doing over this next week. So about a week from this recording, I'll start to put out who's going to be there, what it's going to cost, what you can expect.
Dan, you're awesome, buddy.
Thanks.
Thank you for being on here. How excited have I been?
Oh, extremely.
Dan's coming. I can't wait. Dan, I have so much to talk to you about, man. We'll have to do it again some other time.
Yeah.
But dude, I can't thank you enough. Like I said, man, inspirational my whole career. Every time I open a Magic magazine, Dan Harlan's got a new project out, and it's not a bad thing. It's awesome. And thank you for everything you've done. You're awesome, dude.
You're welcome. It was fun hanging out with you.
All right. Only one more thing left for us to say. See you next week.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.